So good evening or good afternoon or good morning wherever you are in the world. So Talent Finders would like to welcome the amazing and talented PM News anchor and 7 News WSPA Amy Wood. So welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me. This is an honor and a pleasure.
So my first question is, obviously I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. So can you please share with us more about your journey and some background and how you got into your current anchor position?
I was a kid that kind of grew up in the performing arts world a little bit, did, the theater and all of those kinds of things. But in high school, I started dabbling in some classes that were off the beaten path of English. They allowed us to take mini courses, and one of those, there was drama, and there was filmmaking, and then there was journalism. And when I went on the tour of the local newspaper, in my way that I have of being sort of forward with people and just saying what I think, I said to the editor when he was trying to describe how to write a headline, and he showed us the headline he'd written, and I said, I wouldn't have written that. And he was like, what would you have written? And I said, I don't remember what I said. I don't remember what the objection was. But he noticed that I had some kind of sort of knack for this. And he reached out to my teacher and said, she needs to come after school and start, experimenting with journalism and see if she's got a knack for this. And so I started covering, helping with obituary editing, which is the way you start in print journalism, to kind of learn accuracy and the importance of those things. And then carried on into college studying journalism and broadcasting, kind of add that broadcast piece into the equation, and went to American University in D.C. and then did a great internship with a news operation that kind of owned stations around the country. So they were taking national stories and localizing them, which I thought would prepare me to go out in the world and be a local news journalist.
Okay.
And to learn how to cover the big stories but make them relevant to the people you serve. And so then I went into that experience, got a great job opportunity in Minnesota. I'm from New York State,
wow.
but I went
quite a change.
Yeah, I drove all the way out to Minnesota, sight unseen. I was hired by virtue of the guy from the Minnesota station flying to New York to do an ad deal, and so he was able to interview me while he was in New York for the ad deal, and I literally was taken to the Waldorf Astoria, ran into the bar, sat down, did the interview, was hired about a week later, and then drove out to Minnesota 2 weeks later, right before Christmas, as 21, 22 years old, and
Wow.
And started my first job. And so I covered blizzards and breaking news for 3 winters, because it's very, very cold in Minnesota.
Yes.
And then I got the job here in South Carolina after that. That was kind of the progression of market sizes and also weather change. I was like, wait, the South sounds good after the upper Midwest, freezing cold temperatures. And so I moved down south to where I am now, which is South Carolina. And it is a beautiful part of the world. I mean, it is amazing. And it has grown so much since I've been here. I've now been here 30 years. Covering local news, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun.
What would you say some of your biggest lessons and learnings have been within your career?
I think the takeaway from my career path has been to be an early adopter of things, all things new. Try things, because I really think the trajectory of my career changed a lot when I really was one of the first people in the nation as a local news journalist to embrace social media. And I started immediately trying to connect with my audience. I saw it as an opportunity to, in a way, from a marketing perspective, be able to market myself, have my own brand, sort of, of customer service delivery, and, I'm there for you and I care, and you could express that through social media in a way that you can't on the news, and you can't in advertising for the station. So it was sort of a personal level of telling the audience why I really do what I do. And it's been great.
Amazing. So that actually leads me to a question that I was going to ask later, but just in regards to social media. Mm-hmm. So obviously social media is impacted in so many ways, both in a positive and negative way.
Sure.
What do you believe we need to do to improve the current narrative and to use these platforms more responsibly? and how do you believe that this has changed the network industry as well? So working within the networks and personally.
Yeah, because that's like kind of twofold thing, right? Like, so
Yes.
I think first of all, for all of us, like in other words, to grab control of what we are putting in our system, so to speak, digitally.
Yes.
I believe in totally paying attention to what you're following and what you're allowing in your life, in the sense of,
Yes.
if there are negative people out there and they're constantly griping and just, every time you look at their page, you get anxious and uptight and don't feel good. Why are you following that? I mean, it really doesn't make sense.
No.
Now, in the same sense, you cannot put yourself into a cocoon and hide yourself away and pretend nothing in the world is happening. Exactly. And I do think there's a danger in siloing your information so much that you are now only seeing what you agree with. I think that's dangerous, because we all need to, I think, as a journalist, my joy is to constantly be trying to understand everybody's perspective. I mean, that's how I feel like I stay fair and balanced, because I really do care. I want to understand. I don't care if I agree personally with anything. I just want to understand, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Oh, I get this. I get that. You can understand other people's points of view. So I think we have to kind of balance, trying to have a feel-good feed that nourishes you somewhat, with good information, inspirational stuff, but also a balance of, real world, staying in touch with things, following sources and people and institutions that you trust and believe in, and then listening to some people that you don't agree with, just because that challenges your own thinking. It helps you defend your own positions, and it helps you to understand others. I mean, really, we shouldn't constantly, in my opinion, always be battling. It should just be more. It's sad that we can't get back to where we used to just have conversations, and we could disagree but still be friends. And that's the sad part right now. But I think the more you work toward that, I mean, we all have control of our own little feed and what's happening on our social media pages. So if we can try to create those places on our spots, well, maybe we'll become the people want to be part of and around and listen to.
Yeah, and also I think it's also about creating a community and impacting a community in terms of what you're doing as well, and serving and bringing the news to the people. So I agree with that. So having had such a diverse career, was there one specific turning point that gave you a break or opened the door for you to pivot into what it is that or your position now? Like, or was there sort of a multitude of different things that happened to help you get to
social media in general was a big pivot for me, but that was such an interesting path, right? Because if we all remember, who remembers the beginning of social media? Some of you are too young, I'm sure, but some of us remember 12, 14 years ago where we were trying all these strange platforms and experimenting and doing things and trying live feeds and trying chat rooms and trying, YouTube and what was it called? That terrible site. I couldn't stand it. MySpace. Thank you. We all just say that and then we remember it, because it was such a cluttered mess. I mean, it was so like crazy when we'd all add the backgrounds and the whatever. It was a mess. But those things, like as I pivoted and did things, the big change for me as a journalist was live streaming. So I started live streaming behind the scenes of my newscasts, and basically creating what I call two-way news. So it's like a conversation. So that while I am on the air and I'm telling the stories and you get the full content there, behind the scenes in commercial breaks or during a break during sports or whatever, I'm able to talk with the audience and they can ask questions. And it was always so fun to me, especially when I first started, and still to this day, getting the real-time live feedback where you're seeing like the show that our producers spent all day putting together, and then you can tell the stories that really clicked with people or that they care about because of the conversation that erupts around them. So it's always just been really, really neat, like a small focus group that sort of gives you instant feedback and you get a sense for what people care about, what their questions are, what their issues are. Right now, that's been really important with COVID-19 and with all that's going on economically in people's lives, the healthcare part, but also the economic piece. And so there have been so many questions popping up, and it's all been driven, what I'm asking officials, like I'm interviewing a congressman in an hour, and we're going to be talking about the stimulus questions that people have, because they're getting these checks from the American government right now that are going to, help them get through this time. It's really a relief package to help them pay bills, basically. And but there's a lot of people that aren't getting it. It went into the wrong account. I mean, there's just a bunch of issues. And how do I know those things? Because they're telling me on social media.
Exactly, and there's no better information direct from the source, right? So
right.
So as a news anchor and reporter, there's always such a fine line, and with media and news often getting slammed for so-called fake news and inverted commas, what would you say makes you and your style of reporting different?
I do feel that the overall sort of negativity toward journalism is worse at the national level than it is at the local level.
Yes.
And that probably comes down to the fact that in many cases, especially someone like me, I've been here 30 years, that chances are I've met a lot of people in the area, or they've heard stories about me, or I went to their kids' school, or, something like that. So there's some connectedness, and then also social media relationships, building those over a dozen years, and being accessible and streaming behind the scenes and being willing to answer people's questions, being willing to hear them say, you're being unfair, you're whatever the accusation or the concern might be. I think that access, that transparency, that willingness to, listen, helps us maybe fight some of that when you're at the national level. And it's not that I think national journalists don't care. I just think that they're at a level where it's harder to answer all that and see all of that and process all of that, because it's just magnified so much. Yeah.
So what would you say within your career has been the most impactful or memorable experience as a reporter, and can you share with us a news story that really affected or changed you as a person?
Oh gosh, I mean, there have been so many great little stories along the way. When I was in the early 90s, I went on behalf of the station to Russia with a church that was doing some evangelical work there, and covered that, and that was just powerful to sort of see spirituality, connecting with people who were very, we were up in Vorkuta, which was a very depressed coal mining town in the Arctic Circle, way up north, and just a really sort of sad town. I mean, there wasn't a lot of hope there, and it was just cool to see that in action, and that definitely, I think, helped my personal relationship with God somewhat, just, getting a little more comfortable with prayer and things like that than I had been in the past. In terms of stories that have impacted me, honestly, lately, the stories I've been telling about COVID-19, I really think this is the story of my career. This is the story that will be the one I always remember, will always talk about. There have been others that are big, but this is like, I've never seen anything like this. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's mind-blowing. And I've talked to families that have lost loved ones. I've talked to families that have been praying and praying and praying. I just did an interview, it's on my Facebook today, with a family that for 13 days, their father, grandfather, husband was on a ventilator, and they thought he was going to die, and he didn't, and they got him off the ventilator, and he was down to the wire. You had to be off the ventilator by 14 days, or you just don't make it, kind of thing. Yeah. And on almost day 14, they were able to pull him off the ventilator, and it was just like a miracle. It's amazing. And so there's been very sad stories. I talked to this beautiful woman, Alexis, and her dad died. And she was heartbroken, and she literally talked to me. He died at 6:30 on Sunday, and she talked to me at, like 2 o'clock on the next day, and had just told his grandchildren that morning before talking to me that he was gone. And I mean, it's just heavy duty,
Yeah, and I think heavy emotionally. I mean, for everybody, and just absorbing all of that, it's hectic.
And the roller coaster ride families are facing, and how weird it is. You don't have anybody in the hospital with you, and you, like Alexis said, I mean, sadly, people are dying alone. I mean, it is so heartbreaking,
Yeah, and they're getting buried alone, which is, even worse. I don't know. I don't know what's worse, but yeah.
It is absolutely difficult and hard. But I will say, in all of that, people are still managing to find a way to see a bright spot or a silver lining or some hope in the situation. And for this family that this man has come off the ventilator, I mean, they would get on Facebook every day and pray specifically, like, okay, so today, you know, we need his oxygen level to hit this, and we need this to hit that. And they would specifically ask people to pray for those things. People prayed for it, and slowly, you know, they got these wonderful pieces of news. And sadly, it doesn't happen that way for all families, and it's so heartbreaking when it doesn't. But it was so cool. It was like nice to see a hopeful story and to give some families some hope, because there are people walking through that journey right now that are, you know, feeling really like they don't have any hope. And I'm hoping fewer and fewer, as they learn, you know, more about it, fewer and fewer people will have to die from this thing.
Yes, exactly. So I know that when reporting as an anchor, and I don't know if it's changed, but just, you know, from over the years watching, that you can't always get emotionally attached to the stories or breaking news. And that when representing a network, one can't always have an opinion and have to remain unbiased in one's personal capacity. Is this something that you have struggled with? And how have you, over the years, trained yourself to detach to reporting news that is conflicting to your own moral standards?
You know, I really haven't ever, again, sort of getting back to that philosophy of enjoying understanding, even if I don't like it, understanding other points of view and where it comes from. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a curiosity, you know, it's to try to get why did that happen? Why would someone think that way? Crimes can be so mind-boggling. Like, how could, you know, someone ever do such and such? So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know if struggle is the right word, but I definitely have, you know, it's harder to wrap your mind around. We had a mother, it was one of the first times a mother killed her children that we, you know, got a lot of publicity, which was Susan Smith. She was a mom, and she had 2 little toddlers, and she rolled them into a lake here in the back of the car, and then spent 9 days lying about it, saying someone had carjacked and taken them, and the whole area was looking for these children. It was just like one of the most just heart-wrenching things, because it was all this hope that they'd be found, and oh, maybe it's a custody battle, and oh, maybe it's this and that, and then finally she admits that she killed them. And so it was just like from hope and praying and maybe they'll be found, to absolute devastation in them, yanking this car out of the water. And that was one of the toughest stories. And I wasn't a mom yet then, you know, so I think about how different that would have, I might have even had a harder time getting through it, but I had to anchor that funeral. I had to anchor the Charleston church shooting funerals. Those to me are the things that are the toughest, because they're such painful experiences. But the way that the Charleston church shooting community handled that, and Emmanuel Amy handled that service, and the whole thing, it was beautiful. And so even in the darkest of times, there's been bright spots or moments that you could appreciate and learn from. And even right now, I mean, in the tragedies I'm covering in COVID-19, I'm walking away with, you know, a greater appreciation for health and life, and all of us now, you know, wow, think of the things we took for granted, you know, that we're now going like, wow, meeting up with friends for coffee. Who knew that was like so amazing? But it really is, you know. So I think it's given us all a sense of kind of changing our perspective a little bit and taking a deep breath. And there's nothing wrong in life with doing that, right? I mean, I think we all, when we slow down and sort of have a chance to evaluate and think a little bit, it does help to kind of settle the waves. And even though there is a lot of stress that surrounds that with financial circumstances or being out of work and all those things, it still is giving everyone, regardless of all those dramatic pieces of the pie that exist, a chance to reevaluate, you know?
Absolutely. Well, that's what I was been having discussions with many people about, and I almost feel like it's, you know, Mother Nature's way of taking care of things, because I think we've all been going like on a Ferris wheel for so long, and just like the pollution and everything else. And if you see how some of what's happened, even though there's a lot of tragedy, how there's a lot of good things that's happening on the planet in terms of things, you know, like the water in Venice is clear, and apparently there's like fish that haven't been there or been seen for 60 years. And people have been able to see the Himalayas, which they haven't been able to see because of the smog and pollution. And now when India can see from like more than 200 miles or something, they can see the top of the Himalayas because the pollution levels dropped. So I think that there's, you know, there's a swinging pendulum on this, but I do think that, like you say, we have to stop and, you know, figure out what's important and reset. So, for sure. So, one of the other things is, so what would you say have been some of your career highlights?
Oh gosh. Oh wow. I mean, some of the moments that are the highlights really are these big stories for me. You know, one of the greatest honors of my career was being honored by the South Carolina JCs, because they look at people who serve the community and community service around the state. And they do it at the local level, but this was the statewide award, and I don't remember what year it was, but at one of my years here, they gave me that statewide award. So that means a lot to me, because I really care about the community, and being able to help. Really, honestly, in this last couple of months, we've had really terrible story after terrible story. We had a terrible tornado rip through Spartanburg, South Carolina, one of our towns, in February. Then we had COVID-19, and then we had now another tornado that tore through another area of our two counties in our area, Pickens and Oconee County. And in both of those tornado circumstances, we created specials and raised money to help these communities and the people that are like without a house, or, you know, need a hotel to stay in, or need food. And so that's been an honor to like do those recently, and I kind of got to champion and help organize those a lot. And then I've also, in the middle of COVID-19, I've been doing so much constant coverage. Like every day I'm coming in and like we're doing this interview, I do like 3 or 4 of these a day, turning out fresh content with people and webcam interviews. And some of them are families, and some of them are experts on mental health or custody issues in COVID-19. I mean, so many issues surround this thing. And so we turned one of those into a special called Stories of Hope and Healing, and it was just filled with the content that I've been creating. And so that was, those 3 things in a row were kind of have been a big honor for me, you know, at this stage of my career, to get to do those kind of things and serve the community and help people out and give people some stories that will help carry them through this difficult time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So just also, you know, touching a little bit more on COVID-19, and then we'll move on from that. But so as we're going through COVID-19, which has obviously altered all our lives forever, what for you has been the biggest challenges, and what has surprised you the most in terms of how you have had to adapt?
It's been weird for celebrations, so, but also exciting and fun, because it's pulled, that's the other thing, I feel like it's pulled our creativity up a notch or two, because people are thinking out of the box, you know, they're being forced to. And so, for example, my daughter had her Sweet 16, and, you know, we always had in our minds planned either we would take a big trip or have a big party, one or the other. Well, about 5 or 6 weeks before her birthday, we started thinking about doing that, and we started hearing these reports about China, and we were like, ooh, I don't know. She wanted to go to the West Coast. That was going to be her big trip, go to LA or something. And so I'm like, I don't know. I just don't think that's a good idea. Let's just wait and see. And then 2 weeks later, pretty much, flights and, you know, the travel restrictions, all the stuff started popping, and I was like, okay, I don't think we're going to do anything. So what we wound up doing is having one of those parades where people parade by, and we surprised her. We had her go out with some balloons outside. I said, I'll take a picture of you outside, and then we had timed it with her friends, and they all came driving by, beeping and waving and stuff, and it was really fun. So that was, I mean, getting yourself out of your normal mode of thinking. My husband and I have our 25th anniversary next week. I have no idea what we're going to do, because, I mean, we really had meant to plan something great for that, and we haven't. So I'm kind of glad at least we don't have to cancel things.
No.
I guess
you kind of just have to adapt, right?
Yeah, just make the best of it, you know. Yeah. But well, I will say the best.
For your
thank you.
Thanks.
the best part of this thing has been just like kind of getting to revisit time with people. Like, for example, my daughter is home right now working remotely, so she normally is out of state, and we would never have this time. So, I mean, there are those silver linings. You're getting time with people you might not normally get. You're getting more connected with your family. I know that can sometimes be stressful, but if you can get past some of the stress to actually enjoy it, I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. So that leads me to my last two questions. So what are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to others who want to pursue careers as an anchor or journalist or reporter, and what legacy would you like to leave?
Well, first of all, I think if you want to get into journalism, I think you need to go for it, because if you have that in your heart, that you want to tell people stories, serve the community, help people grow to understand the issues that surround them and what they need to know, I think you shouldn't ignore it, because we need good journalists. And I think journalism's been getting kind of knocked down, so don't listen to all that, because I don't think that'll last forever. And ultimately, here's the thing. Ultimately, even though people are knocking journalism in general, people are coming back to journalism right now because they need credible, reliable sources of information. So, you know, there's so much stuff out there that isn't true, and you need to know who you can trust and who has reliable information. So find those sources, and then if you want to be part of that, be that source. You know, I mean, that's a great way to be. I also think you have to be willing to sort of take risks. I definitely have been a risk taker in my career. It's been easier for me because obviously I've been here for a longer time. But as you progress in your career, I dare you to, you know, have a forgiveness, not permission kind of philosophy, because that's what worked for me. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, sometimes you just have to try things. And we're in an era and a time, and I think, honestly, I think that will be a lasting legacy of COVID-19, is that we will all be more willing to just try something new and not be afraid of technology as much as we were, because suddenly everyone's being forced into this kind of stuff. I mean, you have to get online, you have to connect, and it's the only way right now. So it's pretty amazing. I think that will open up more opportunity. I think you'll find bosses and managers and people around you more willing to let you do things after this, because it's not as scary anymore, you know? And then I also would suggest that you just make a promise to yourself to be a constant learner. I feel like journalism in and of itself, just doing the job, is sort of a continuing education. But also, you know, I push myself to, you know, follow cool people that are sort of forward thinking. I saw in your bio how you like Gary Vaynerchuk, and I love Gary Vaynerchuk, even though he's got bad language. But I mean, he's amazing.
You have to go and get past that.
Yeah. Oh, really? You have to, you know, reach out and take advantage of things. That's a great story. Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a big-time thought leader in social media and marketing and all kinds of things, he was in our area to speak. And I was going to go to the event. And I called the organizer. This is, again, take the initiative, don't ask permission. I said, hey, who's introducing him? And they're like, well, I am. And I'm like, do you know anything about him? And she's like, well, not really. And I said, can I introduce him? And she's like, sure. So then I get to the event. I introduce him, which was so cool. And so I got to sit next to him, which is great. Then I'm sitting there with him, and I hear people going, who's going to take him to the airport? I don't know. Who's going to take him to the airport? I said, I'll take him to the airport. And so then Gary and I had this fantastic, it was when the Jets were in the Super Bowl, and so he was trying to get his, you know, tickets on the phone and everything in the car. So I was like, shoot, he's on the phone the whole time. I'm never going to get to talk to this guy. And then finally, like the last 10 minutes, he was like, okay, let's talk. And so then we talked, and it was great. He gave me some good advice, which I won't share here. But it was good career advice about, you know, staying in television and keeping on all my fires burning on all the other fronts. So it's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
It was.
So I just wanted to elaborate on that. So I also noticed, because at one point a lot of people were saying, where the celebrities, why are the celebrities not stepping up, you know, because they, you know, more financially, you know, they have more financial wealth. And then I saw obviously the CEO of Twitter, who gave $1 billion of his own money to charity. Wow. And I just thought, I just think to myself, that's what I feel it's about. And I think that the redistribution of wealth is really necessary. So I actually wanted to ask your opinion, if you had anything or any opinion around that.
I don't share opinions on on issues like that, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of conversation going on about that for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can have you back in the future. And yeah, thanks so much and all the best.
Yes, same to you, Karen. Thank you.